Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's workshop. We are going to be talking about some simple exercises that you can do and how they play a role in our digestion, both throughout the day and around meal times. So we're going to be doing a bit of a couple-part workshop, and we'll talk through each part as we go through them. But before we get started in the workshop, we're going to do a little bit of just some education around what are we talking about today? Why does meal hygiene and why do some of these exercises play such a big role in our digestive health? As I mentioned before we got started, if you can run and grab, or if you're already in your kitchen, if you can just grab something really small, it could be a little chocolate chip, it could be a salted nut of some sort, a little piece of fruit, very, very tiny, just like the size of an almond is what we're looking for. We're going to need that for our first workshop that we're going to do right after we do some education. So go ahead and grab that. And I promise it won't fill you up if you're not ready to eat yet. It's just going to be something for our workshop. Okay, so we're going to be talking about meal hygiene. And when it comes to meal hygiene, there's a few different things that we look at. So meal hygiene really just means what is the health or state of our nervous system and our body when we're going into meals. And a lot of people don't recognize this, but our digestive system, it only works in what's called the parasympathetic state, or what we also call the rest and digest state. And so there's two states that our nervous system is constantly at play, essentially happening in the background without us even being in control of it throughout the day. There's two modes. We call one of them our sympathetic, which you might have heard of as your fight or flight state. And then the other mode, which is like the off switch, is our parasympathetic, and that's our rest or digest state. So our sympathetic state, we go into when we're working, when we're yelling, when we're running, usually when we're exercising, when we're stressed, anything that's really mobilizing and requiring energy from our body. And our rest and digest state is what we go into when our body is rested. So that's what you might be in if you're watching TV and relaxing on the couch, when you're getting a pedicure, when you're getting a massage, when you are sitting outside hearing the birds chirp. Those moments are getting you into the parasympathetic state. And it's really important that in our body, we have a good balance between those two states. We don't always want to be in the sympathetic, but we also don't always want to be in the parasympathetic. If anything, we want to be a little bit more on the parasympathetic side than the sympathetic. When we're in that fight or flight or that sympathetic state too often, that's where we see a lot of not just digestive problems present, but also a lot of other health problems, hypertension or high blood pressure, heart-related problems, blood sugar-related problems, because things are constantly being mobilized for energy. Our body doesn't have enough time to recover in between all of these different stressors. And so there's something with our meals that is really important, and it's called our vagus nerve. And our vagus nerve is the main nerve that runs from our brain to the rest of our body, but it connects our brain to our digestive system. And you might have experienced before that when you're really stressed or anxious, you feel bubble guts, maybe you have loose stools, you notice a change in your digestion. For other people, they notice when they're really stressed, the opposite happens. They get really constipated, really bloated feeling. Maybe it even feels like when you eat that the food just goes right through you. That's because of that vagus nerve and that brain to gut connection that's happening. And our brain and our gut are constantly talking to one another. So what we ideally want to do before meals is we want to activate our parasympathetic state. We want to send that signal from our brain to our gut. We are in rest and digest. We are ready to digest this food that we are about to eat. And there's a couple ways that we could support this. When we support our rest and digest state, it helps our body make the right juices that help us break down the food that we eat. So when we eat, there's a couple of different organs and juices that are released. Our pancreas releases enzymes, and those help us break down proteins and vegetables and fruits and starches that we eat. Our gallbladder, or if you don't have a gallbladder, then your liver releases bile, and that helps you break down fats. So that might be the fat in the meat you're eating or the oils in the meal, nuts and seeds. And then we also release stomach acid or hydrochloric acid from our stomach, and that also helps to be able to break down vegetables and proteins. So you see that all of these different organs come into play and they all release their respective juices so that we can take that food that we just consumed, we can break it apart, and then all of those nutrients from that food can then be absorbed and go into circulation and go through our digestive system and be utilized properly. And for a lot of individuals, they're not making enough of these juices. And that could cause things like bloating after you eat, cause a lot of like IBS related symptoms. A lot of times it can cause diarrhea. You might notice that you have like undigested food in the stool, light colored stools or floaty stools. These are all symptoms of not making enough of these digestive juices. So there's a couple things that we can do before we eat to make sure that we're in the parasympathetic state. And then there's a couple things we want to not do. We'll start with the not do, since those are the fastest ones. We want to make sure that before meals that we are not drinking a lot of water. And I know that might sound counterintuitive. And of course, if you have some type of, obstruction that, maybe you don't make adequate levels of saliva, then this doesn't apply to you. But for the average person, we don't want to be diluting all of these juices with tons and tons of water. We want to consume water outside of our meals. And we should be adequately hydrated that when we eat, that food is providing the hydration source. If we're eating the right types of foods, like lots of fresh foods, like fruits and vegetables, they have a lot of natural water in them, and those should be the hydration that are coming in during that meal. Whereas if you're eating a lot of French fries and fried foods, of course, then those don't have a lot of hydration. You could see why you would get thirsty during the meal. They also have a lot of salt that causes more thirst. But ideally, we want very small sips of water, just enough to be able to make adequate levels of saliva. We don't want to be drinking tons and tons of water during the meals. You want that to be outside of the meal. So that's something that we don't want to do. We also don't want to be eating while we're standing, eating while we're driving, or really eating while we're distracted. You might have done this before. Maybe you've been eating while you're like watching a movie or you're working, whatever it might be. And you almost don't even know when you finish the meal, right? Because you were so not present while you were eating that your body and your brain, your gut and your brain were able to send those right signals to say, oh, I'm satiated, or I got the right nutrients I needed out of the meal. And so we want to be really present when we eat, which I know can be really hard with our culture of always trying to do a million things at once. But mealtime is really the most important time to really stop, take a minute, eat, and then get back to whatever you're doing, and to really try to keep that time peaceful and just focused on eating. Now, a couple of things that we can do to help with activating this parasympathetic state. One of them is called box breathing. And box breathing is as simple as the name implies. Essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to create a box before you start eating. And this is a really, really simple exercise. I would say that this is for someone that needs a very small amount of support from their meal. And then we're going to talk about something that's a little bit of higher level support that you can do. But you can start here. Essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to pick a number. I usually like to use the number 4. And you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. So breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to hold for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going to exhale for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're going to reset for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're going to repeat that 4 times through. Okay, so breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And reset for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So pick a number. I like the number 4. You can, as you get more advanced with this, you can go up to 10 if you wish. And you'll do a couple rounds of that before each meal. And it's just a great way that if you're noticing before you go into a meal and you kind of check in with yourself, you notice your heart's a little bit racy, you're feeling a little bit of anxiety or anxiousness, and you're just noticing you're not super present with the meal, you can get yourself to do that, just for a few minutes before you start the meal. And it's a great way to help shift into that parasympathetic state. Okay, the next we're going to do is a little bit more lengthy, but I'm going to have you take your hands, and I'm going to back this up so you can see. Okay, So you're going to do a tapping exercise, and this is a more advanced level exercise for someone that needs a little bit more support. You're going to put one hand on the lower part of your abdomen, and you're going to put one right at the top of your abdomen. So it should be one on top and one below. And you're going to tap on both of these hands at the same time, and we're going to repeat that 50 times. Now, I'm pregnant, so I'm not going to go very hard, but you can go much more aggressively. Of course, you don't want to hurt yourself with this, but we want to apply enough pressure to where our stomach is getting the sensation that we are tapping it. So you're just going to tap both of these areas 50 times through, and it should be at equal intervals, right hand on top or left hand on top, the opposite hand on the bottom, and we're just tapping our stomach. And this is actually just sending a signal back up to our brain for that vagus nerve stimulation to happen so that our stomach knows, okay, it's time to turn on. Think of it as like saying, hello, are you working? Are you alive? Wake up, right? That's essentially what we're doing, okay? So you're gonna keep tapping. You're gonna do that 50 times through, one hand on top and one hand on bottom. Okay, the next one you're going to do is you're going to take your two fists and you're going to face them towards each other. So they should be by your sides. You're going to take your two hands, make a fist with them, and you're going to face your fists towards each other so that your fingernails are facing one another, your right and your left hand. Okay. And you're going to be seated in this. We don't want to be standing, so make sure you're seated. And you're going to twist your waist left to right. So we're going to go right, left, or you can start with the left, right, left. And you're just going to twist like this, back and forth 30 times, okay? Right to left. Make sure that you are engaging your core so this does not hurt your back. You have back problems and this is aggravating you, you can go back to the first exercise. Okay, so you're going to repeat that 30 times through. And these are two exercises that if you need a little bit of higher level support, you can do before your meals. I would start with the one with hand above, hand below. Remember, tap 50 times. And then you'll go into the one where your fists are facing each other and you're twisting right to left. Twisting exercises are really great for stimulating our digestive organs. It's one of the benefits of twisting yoga exercises. You might have heard of like digestive yoga before, but that's something that you can actually do to help when you're feeling like really bloated or you feel like food isn't moving through your digestive system well. So that can be something. I don't really recommend doing that before a meal, but of course you could. But that's a very quick exercise that you can do that provides a very similar effect. Any questions on those exercises so far? You can always unmute yourself if you're muted, or you can write in the chat box. Okay, we're going to go on to our next exercise. Okay, this is where you're going to take that piece of food that you gathered. It could be a chocolate chip, or it could be an almond, a cashew. If it's salted, even better, or something that's a little bit more flavorful. It could be like a blueberry, totally up to you. And if it has a wrapping on it, don't unwrap it. If it doesn't have a wrapping, that's fine. But if it's like a chocolate and it's melting in your fingers, you can put it on the counter until we're fully ready. But I just want you to pick up that piece of food, whatever it might be. Don't unwrap it yet if it's wrapped. And I just want you to place it in the palm of your hand, right or left. It's totally up to you. And I just want you to take a look at it. Notice the colors and shapes that are on it, or the shape of it, and feel the weight of it in your hand. Is it really light? Is it heavy? How much space is it taking up in your hand? I just want you to fully acknowledge all of the physical characteristics of it. Pretend like you've never seen this food before and just really look at it and inspect it. How often do we actually look at the food that we eat in great detail? Really never. So just really inspect it for all the qualities and characteristics that it has. If there's packaging, go ahead and touch the packaging with your fingers and just feel the texture. Pay attention to any sound that the wrapper might make. Examine it and just look at all the colors and all of the shadows and reflections that it's giving. If not, you can just continue to analyze the food that you're looking at. If your mind starts to wander and you're thinking that I'm crazy right now, bring your mind back to the present moment. That's okay. It's normal. But just kind of notice your thoughts of where they're going and bring your attention back to whatever it is that you're holding, chocolate, an almond, whatever it might be. If it has a wrapper, go ahead and slowly open it and just notice the sounds of the wrapper tearing, the movement of the wrapper in your hand. If it doesn't, you can continue to hold on to the piece of food. And just notice all the sounds that are in the background. If there's anyone that's making sound, if you're noticing anything being picked up on our Zoom, just notice all the sounds that are around you. Take whatever it is that's in your hand and raise it to your nose and just smell it and smell all of the different smells and sensations of that food. If it's chocolate, hopefully it smells really good. If it's a fruit, hopefully it smells really sweet. And just slowly take a breath in several times and focus on all of the different smells. Is there anything that you notice when you smell it that triggers anything else in your body? Maybe you notice that if it's a piece of fruit and it's sour smelling, that it activates your jowls and you feel like a little sensation in your mouth. Or if it's chocolate, maybe you notice the sweetness and you feel calm and relaxed when you smell it. But we really want to just activate all of our senses and smell all of the different characteristics of that food. And go down to your mouth and just notice what's happening. Are you noticing your mouth is watering? Are you salivating? Are you getting excited? Are you feeling ready that you want to eat this food? Are you ready for salt, sweetness, whatever it might be? And just notice like any thoughts that are coming about or any sensations that you feel in your mouth. Now I want you to take that piece of food and slowly take a bite of it, not the whole thing, just a small bite of it, but don't chew it or swallow it. So just a bite and then keep that in your mouth and just notice the feeling and taste of it in your mouth. So go ahead and take a small bite of it, hold on to it, but don't swallow just yet. And just notice how it feels as it's melting, if it's chocolate, or as the almond casing is breaking down, if it's a piece of almond, whatever it might be, just notice how it's feeling. Notice the taste and the sensations of it on your tongue. Move it around, kind of, move it from side to side in your mouth, and just notice all of the different tastes and sensations that it's lighting up within your mouth. And try to notice the moment where you feel like you want to swallow. And once you notice that moment, go ahead and slowly swallow that bite of whatever it was that you had in your hand. And just slowly swallow it and focus on all the sensations, how it's feeling in your body, how you notice it feels physically, how it smells, how it tastes, how it's affecting you emotionally, and any lingering tastes or sensations that you notice in your mouth. And if you want, you can go ahead once you're done with that, you've swallowed, you can finish the rest of whatever it is that you had. You can toss it away, whatever you prefer to do. And I just want us to kind of think and reflect on how did that feel in comparison to how you would normally eat that food. So if you would normally eat a piece of chocolate or an almond, what felt different? Did you notice it tasted different? Do you feel different right now from eating it? Remember, it was just one little piece of it, right? So maybe you notice a change in like satiety or a change in fullness or, satisfaction from having it. I'd love for you to share if you want to. You can always unmute yourself or share in the comments. Otherwise, you can, if you have a journal, you can sit down and you can journal and reflect on it, or you can just think about it in your head as well. I'm going to eat my chocolate because it's totally melted in my hand. So that's just a mindful eating exercise that we can do. And I don't expect you to do that before every time you eat, but it's a way for you to see maybe some of the differences in how that experience was versus what your typical everyday experience is. And to start to try to draw more awareness to being more mindful when we are eating so that we're able to send that signal to our brain from our gut of satiety, because there's a lot of different signals that are happening when we eat that are telling our brain we got adequate fuel, we don't need to overeat, we're satiated, we can digest, we can absorb properly. There's so many things that are happening. The more that we slow down and we activate all of these senses first, that's one of the reasons why doing things like the box breathing and being calm and not distracted are so important, because then all of your senses are engaged and engaged into that meal that you're about to eat. And that's how we activate that parasympathetic state. We're going to talk a little bit more about the vagus nerve. I briefly mentioned about it earlier and mentioned how it is that nerve that connects our brain. It's in the back of our neck, connects our brain to our digestive system. And it has a lot of roles. And so we're going to go through just some of the roles that it has. It's the main parasympathetic nerve of the body. So that rest and digest nerve. In the stomach, it helps us to be able to churn food that we eat and helps us make stomach acid, which remember breaks down protein and vegetables and things. If it's damaged or it's not functioning optimally, then many people have issues with low stomach acid or low amount of digestive enzymes. And maybe you've noticed this, you've been told before you have low issues with this. You have issues with like hair loss, chronically low B vitamin levels. You notice a lot of undigested food in your stool. So there's a lot of issues that can come up when we don't have enough of these. And so generally we would replace them. You might be on like digestive enzymes or something called betaine to be able to help with that. But just keep in mind that stomach acid is our first line of defense against anything unwanted. It's like the Clorox in our gut. So it's going to kill bacteria, viruses, parasites, anything that comes into contact. So if we don't have enough of this Clorox in our gut, then when we eat something that maybe is contaminated, we don't have enough defense mechanisms. So we want to make sure that we have a good vagus nerve, because if we have a healthy vagus nerve, then we have healthy levels of stomach acid. Our vagus nerve also supports our liver. And remember that this is part of where that bile production happens and where the bile transport to the gallbladder occurs, which then goes to our small intestine to help us digest fat. It also helps us balance our blood sugar, so it can prevent issues with both things like diabetes. It can also help prevent issues with high cholesterol levels. Our liver and gallbladder are really important for thyroid diseases as well, like hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. It also helps us detoxify toxins. And then in our pancreas, which I mentioned is where digestive enzymes come from, those digestive enzymes help us break down protein, fats, and carbohydrates. They also help us balance our blood sugar, improve our blood sugar control. And then we have our small and large intestines, and our vagus nerve is connected to those as well. And this is our vagus nerve helps stimulate the muscles that are in our small and large intestine to actually push food through when we eat it and push that waste through our digestive tract. So you can imagine that if you don't have good vagus nerve activity, then you're probably going to deal with constipation or feeling really bloated because food isn't moving through as quickly as it should. And so it really serves as like this communication pathway to the rest of our digestive system and ultimately to our colon. And this is where then that feedback loop then goes back to our brain that stimulates kind of the digestive state of our body. So there are some conditions that have been associated with what we call poor vagal tone, or where there's not enough vagus nerve activity. These can be heartburn, acid reflux, or GERD. It can also be IBS, both constipation and diarrhea IBS or mixed IBS, irritable bowel diseases like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, and small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO. So if you've ever had, or if you currently have any of these conditions or symptoms of any of these conditions, then there's probably some work we want to do on the vagus nerve. And everyone's level of work looks different. What causes vagus nerve issues? Mainly, it's some type of stress response. Generally, it starts early in life. So it could be things like childhood trauma. It could be a really stressful life growing up. It could be you're under a lot of stress right now. Those generally are what decrease our vagal tone. But there's a lot of other like more structural things that can decrease our vagal tone as well. And there's a lot of exercises that we can do to actually stimulate our vagus nerve. And these are not things that we do before meals. These would be things that you would do at other points of the day to actually be able to strengthen our vagus nerve and improve that vagal tone that ultimately is then going to help with your digestion. And you can Google this, the vagus nerve and the brain and the gut. There is so much research on it. So I know that it sounds maybe a little bit woo, but it's really not. It is a nerve that's in our body, and it has an incredible role on our health and well-being. And I feel like every day they're coming out with more information on its role in inflammation and different chronic diseases, even because of the vagus nerve role. So one of those things that we can do, and you can do this morning and night, is humming or gargling or even singing. Those all stimulate our vagus nerve. So if you want to hum, then you just pierce your lips and you can do and you'll feel it in the back of your throat, right? And that's right where your vagus nerve ties in to connect that noise, that stimulation down to your gut. You can gargle water, salt water. I don't recommend using an alcohol-based mouth rinse because that kills all the good bacteria in your mouth, but you could use some type of like more natural mouth rinse and gargle that. Or singing. Singing is a really great way to do this too. So if you like to sing in the shower, in the car, that also helps with activating your vagus nerve. So singers tend to have really good vagal nerve tone because of this. Now, there's a couple exercises I'm going to walk you through that you can do outside of this as well. The first ones are going to be in our ear. So our vagus nerve can be stimulated through our ear. So the first thing we're going to do is just take one of your ears. You can start at the right ear, and you're just going to take your fingers and you're just going to put it right in that little section that's right in the middle of your ear. So right in like your ear canal, and just kind of check your ear for stiffness. Like just notice, just kind of pull on it and just notice how stiff it is. And then I want you to go over to the other ear and just do the same thing and just kind of pull around and notice the same level of stiffness, or is it different? What are the differences you're noticing? Now you're going to take your fingers, and there's this little ridge that's above your ear canal. So your ear canal is like the little middle part right here, and there's like a ridge that's right above it. You're going to put your finger right above that ridge. So it should be like right underneath the top of that fold in your ear. Hopefully I'm close enough to where you can see that. So if your ear canal is right here, there's a ridge. You're going to put your finger right above that ridge, right in that little pocket. Okay. And this should not hurt. You're going to be very gentle. The impact is not in how hard you go. It is in how much you move the skin of your ear. And all you're going to do is make very gentle circles and move your ear in circles. Okay. So it's all going to be from your finger moving your ear. And you're going to do forward, backward, completely up to you, but just keep moving it in circles for about 30 seconds. And I just want you to notice what happens when you do this. Do you notice like you get a sensation of feeling sleepy, feeling calm, instantly feeling relaxed? I know when I do this, I feel really sleepy. You might even notice you yawn. That's totally normal response. And why is that happening? Because it's activating your parasympathetic state, your rest and digest state. It's calming down your body. It's calming down your nervous system and stimulating your vagus nerve. Okay. So it's about 30 seconds. You're going to take that and you're going to go to the other side and do the same thing. So remember, your ear canal is right in the middle. It's going to be that ridge. Your finger is going to go right above the ridge. And again, we're just going to do gentle circles, forward and back motion for about 30 seconds. And I just want you to notice any difference in how you're feeling between ears or just in general since we started this. And again, you can switch and you can go in a backward motion now. And you're just moving the skin of your ear and just noticing how you're feeling when you're doing this. Okay. And then I just want you to go back and check your ear for stiffness. So start with the right ear that we started on and just notice, does it feel the same level of stiffness? Do you notice a difference in stiffness? Then go to the left and just check it for stiffness. Not always, but most of the time you'll notice your ear feels less stiff. We hold a lot of tension in our ears, which sounds crazy, but it should help to be able to kind of lower some of the stiffness in your ears. And this can be a really great exercise you can do if you're noticing like you're feeling really anxious or stressed. If you're having like a headache, sometimes it can help alleviate some of that as well. But I just want you to kind of check in and notice how you're feeling from doing that. And if you notice you got sleepy or yawned or anything, and if you want to share, you're more than welcome to tell us how it felt or share in the notes or in the comments below. We're going to do one more, and then it'll be our last part of the workshop after this. Okay, this next one is going to be with our neck. So if you have any neck problems, then you can go back to the ear exercise, or you can just try this. It's not going to be painful, but you can try this. And if it is painful or hurts, then don't do it. But you're going to start with your neck, and you're just going to start with turning your head side to side, not abrasively, just very gently going left to right. And see what you notice as you do this. For some people, you'll notice that just doing this makes you yawn, makes you sleepy, calms you down. Makes you feel relaxed. We're just going to go left to right a couple times. And if you're able to lay down, then please do for this last exercise. Otherwise, you can stay seated as I'm going to show you. You can stop turning your head left to right and just come back to the center. You're going to take your hands and interlock your fingers just like this. And you're going to place those hands behind your head, just right in the middle of your head. And you're going to keep your head in the center. So don't move your head at all. Don't move your neck. Body completely centered. And all you're going to do is you're going to move your eyes all the way to the right. So I want you to go as far as you can with your eyes to the right without moving your head or neck or body at all. So go ahead and move your eyes all the way as far as you can to the right. I'm just going to be here for just about 20 seconds. And I just want you to notice any feeling of calmness. Again, you might yawn, you might sigh, you might feel sleepy. If it's starting to feel uncomfortable, your eyes are feeling strained, that's normal. Just another minute. And then you can relax your eyes and come back to center. You can blink a few times if you would like to reset. And then we're going to go to the opposite side to the left. And we're just going to keep our body centered, head centered, neck centered, and eyes look all the way to the left as far as you can. Again, just noticing how you're feeling, any calmness, sensations, any differences between the right or left side. If it's feeling a little bit uncomfortable, stick with it for just a minute longer. And then rest your eyes and come back to center. And you can take your fingers and put them back down. Okay, so those are both just two different examples that you can do to support vagal tone. You can do a mix of both. You can do one or the other. If you liked one or you noticed that one helped you more than the other, then maybe stick with that one. But they're both exercises that you have at your disposal. Remember that these aren't things you need to necessarily do before a meal. They're more something that I would do when you're noticing that you're in that fight or flight state during the day, or something you could do like upon rising before you go to bed each night, so that we're getting a little bit of that vagal nerve stimulation. And it can have a really profound effect on your digestion with time. So I know that maybe initially you might not notice a big difference, but if you're noticing you're having a bad digestion day, do these exercises and do them daily, and you'll start to notice a big difference, because remember that they're stimulating that vagus nerve. I also think that doing the humming, gargling, and singing are really great things that can easily be integrated too. So that's something that maybe you could add into when you brush your teeth in the morning or in the evening time. So remember that those are to support our vagal tone. And then we talked at the beginning of the workshop about ways to support our meal hygiene, so things that we can do before eating. So remember, we did that mindful eating exercise, which you could do before a meal if you'd like to, or if there's maybe something that is you really love. I try to do this whenever I eat like something not great. Like last weekend I had ice cream, and I wouldn't normally eat ice cream. And so I really wanted to enjoy it. It was a small serving of ice cream. And so I did this exercise with it, and I didn't do the whole script and everything, but more so just try to activate my senses and really be like present and engaged when I was eating it. And I'm telling you, like, the sensation and the enjoyment and fulfillment you get from that ice cream is so much greater than you would get if you had it while totally distracted. But remember that before our meals, we want to make sure that at least we're doing one of either the box breathing, or remember we did the tapping your belly button exercise and then the fists with this twist. You pick one of those, or you can do a mix of all three of them before you eat, and do it each time before a meal as a great way to be able to activate that parasympathetic state. And then on a daily basis, you can do those vagal tone exercises. So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to send out a little kind of just quick cheat sheet of some of those exercises that we did today, in case you want to have those to use for reference in the future. And I'd be happy to stay on for a couple more minutes to answer any questions that you guys might have on anything we did or anything we didn't do that you're curious about. So feel free to either ask away verbally, or you can put it in the chat box. And then we will be sending out a copy of this recording either sometime tomorrow or early next week in case you'd like to go through anything again. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. Really enjoyed meeting with you. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night and that this was helpful. And hopefully we'll see you guys next month. If you haven't already caught our podcast episodes, the theme this month was all about digestion. I think we have 3 podcast episodes that are in whatever podcast app. So you can listen on YouTube, you can listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You're just going to search Nourish MD. So Nourish MD. And we've got an interview with Dr. Quiss, who's one of the gastroenterologists that we refer to quite a bit. And then Ramana and I both did 2 on different nutrition related things. So those would be great resources to listen to if you haven't already. But have a great rest of your evening, and thank you so much for being here.